And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals VFL Vantage. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk Victorian Football League. I know it's been a little bit, some things have just been kind of crazy, but we finally able to chat because Brendan Rhodes, again, joining me as my co host. We have a premiere. The VFLW has a premiere. We won't say who it is. Those of you will probably know who it is, but let's just safe to say it was a crazy VFLW finals, and we've had 5 weeks of the men's competition, seeing it get closer and closer to finals. Brendan, great to see you. How good has the footy been?
Great to be with you again, Donny, and we're glad that the footy has been great because the weather has been, well, almost Iowa cold. I, I know I'm lying there because you guys do get snow, and we just think we're about to get snow, but it has been cold. It's been wet, but there's been some wonderful footy played, and as you said, we've had the finals and the premiership decided in the VFLW competition, which we'll talk about very shortly, and we've got a VFL competition that's really hotting up with I think at most 13 teams still in the race and probably only 11. So, but inside that top 10, it's anybody's ball game.
That's going to be definitely interesting for sure. There, as we get closer and closer to finals, we're actually only 3 rounds left until finals. You don't know what, since the finals are so important, let's start with the men. We have 5 weeks to go through. I know it's a little bit of a slog to get through this, but we will get through this. 5 rounds of footy to cover. We will jump all the way back to round 14 as we see the GWS Giants knock off the Southport Sharks 112-85. Brisbane Lions continue the pain for the Coburg Lions, beating them 119-71. The Suns beat the Frankston Dolphins by a score of 80-47. The KC Demons knock off the Bull Ants 75-47. The Essendon Bombers defeat the Collingwood Magpies 98-63. The Footscray Bulldogs knock off North Melbourne 97-63. The Borough edge out Box Hill by 7, 71-64. The Richmond Tigers get a win by 36 over the Carlton Blues, 105-69. Werribee survive a scare from the Sydney Swans by 14, 59-45. And the Sandringham Zebras fall to the Geelong Giants at GMHBA Stadium by 15, 88-73. Some cracking games here in round 14, including a 7-point thriller between the Borough and the Hawks. And I think he froze.
I was lucky with that one. Sorry, you still with us?
Yep, I'm still with you. We've had a froze moment there. Darn internet.
We did because yeah, no, sorry, I was actually set up for the women. You meant the men. I had to flick cross, and that's what stuffed the whole show.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I've got that open now, so we can cut this a little bit out. So you were asking about Port and Box Hill. What was it?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, stupid bloody thing.
Okay. I think we have some technical
Still there?
difficulties here. Yep, I'm still here. You still here?
Yeah, yeah, I'm still here. It's definitely at my end, though. I can promise you that.
Okie dokie. Don't we love the internet for sure? So so I think we're all
Fairly.
back. I think we're all back now. So yeah. The,
Yeah.
the
So
seven
I'll
the
just
seven
I'll just
points. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, and a cracking game it was too between the Borough and the Hawks. I was lucky to actually be there this day. Box Hill went in as obviously red hot favourites for the game, but Port kicked 2 goals in the first couple of minutes and led for the entire day. It was a fantastic performance by them, their best effort of the season. Got out to almost 5 goals in front just before half time. Uh, charging back, and they actually got back within a point at the 20, and it really looked like they were going to run over the top, but uh, Port Melbourne has all the heart in the world, and they found an answer. Matt Signorello kicked a goal at the 26-minute mark, and they managed to hold on for a famous victory, which could end up being the difference between Box Hill making the top four or not.
Definitely for sure. So the fun part about internet, sometimes it can always mess with you a little bit. But let's jump to it. We'll jump to round 15. We have a lot to get through, so I'm going to try to kind of speed this up as much as I possibly can because my my co-host is also trying to keep track of the Olympics. The fun part about the time change is always so much fun on this one. So we jump to round 15 as we see the Gold Coast Suns beat the Williamstown Seagulls 84-57. Carlton get a win over the GWS Giants by 21, 114-93. The Brisbane Lions with another impressive performance beating the KC Demons 123-77. The Werribee Tigers continue their strong form with a 23-point win over the Footscray Bulldogs 69-46. The Essendon Bombers beat the Borough by 26, 107-81, an absolute cracker as the Zebras fall to the Swans by 7, 75-68. The Frankston Dolphins get the Collingwood Magpies again by a score of 94-75, a 1-point thriller as the old rivals Box Hill just edge out Geelong 72-71, and Richmond with a thrashing of the Northern Bull Ants 134-39, a 95-point win. So, I mean, just by the score wise, this has to be game of the round as Box Hill just survive a scare from the Cats.
Oh, and once again, a wonderful game of football, no question about that. And the Hawks did look like they were going to get done and lose a second consecutive home game, which would have been a massive turn up. They had control. They led by a couple of goals. I think it was at or 4 points. They led by at 3/4 time, and they got headed. Geelong kicked a couple goals midway through the last quarter, got themselves 6 or 7 points in front. This time, Box Hill came back, and this time they were able to find the result. And it was actually Finn McGuinness, the son of Scotty, and the Hawthorn player who had been dropped back, probably because there was no one for him to tag at the moment, and he had an absolute blinder that day. And after a scramble in the rain, he got onto a loose ball and banged a huge drop punt home from about 55 metres out with a couple of minutes to go that put the Hawks in front and gave them that 1 point victory, which probably cancels out the loss to Port Melbourne, given how well Geelong is going. That I think that ended an 8-match winning streak for Geelong or something along those lines.
Crazy, absolutely crazy, and then you can't say that the Sandringham Swans game, a 7-point win. It's always a close one. When you can get one under 10, it's always a fascinating one on that one as well. Let's jump to round 16, where we see another thriller that the Swans participate in. This time, as they go on the other side of the ledger, as they fall to North Melbourne by 5, 84-79. The Sharks with a nice little pounding of Box Hill after a couple of close games. Box Hill just falls a little bit short to Southport by 53, 107-54. The Werribee Tigers with another impressive win, beating Coburg 130-51. The Cats bounce back after the tough loss, getting a nice win over Collingwood 103-74. Frankston beat the Bull Ants by 28, 92-64. Williamstown knock off the Zebras by 20, 83-63. The Richmond Tigers with an upset over the Gold Coast Suns, 96-70, a 26-point win for the Tigers there. The Footscray Bulldogs survive a scare by the Carlton Blues by 9, 88-79, and the Casey Demons get a win over the Dons 92-68. A couple of cracking games with not only a 9-point win by Footscray, but an absolute classic between North and Sydney to start off the round.
Well, this is the frustrating part for Sydney Swan supporters, as both of us well know. Um, the Swans can go to Melbourne and have great away wins against Footscray and Sandringham, and we'll talk about another great interstate win that they had in a couple of rounds time. And then they lose home games to teams that they really should be beating. And this in this particular game, they were well down to North Melbourne. The Kangaroos had a 30-point lead midway through this match. The Swans came rushing home. They got right into position there, and I think they actually got level. They got level at the 24-minute mark when Sam Reid kicked a goal. Uh, Obviously, it turned out to be his second last game of football. Aaron Francis kicked a point, put the Swans in front, and then the ball got out the back, and Cooper Harvey, the son of the great Brent Harvey, ran onto the loose ball in the goal square and kicked the winner in the 28th minute. Swans had one last go at it, but unfortunately, Jake Bartholomeus had a kick after the siren from about 55 metres out and put it out of bounds on the full. So that's how close it was, and a missed opportunity for the Swans, and it kept the Kangaroos alive for an extra week. The other one you're talking about, Footscray and Carlton. Well, Carlton has turned their form around completely. That win against the Giants the week before broke an 8-match losing streak, and then they take on. They're sitting in 19th or 20th spot on the ladder, and they take on Footscray, who were second, and pushed them all the way to the wire. And unfortunately for them, they just couldn't get that one more goal to take the lead, and it was only one rush just before 3/4 time where the Dogs kicked 4 goals in 4 minutes that proved the difference between the two teams that day. But Carlton is certainly now capable of proving to be a final spoiler down this final stretch.
Yeah, sometimes those can be the most dangerous teams and the teams that know that the only thing they can do is change the finals with wins. So it's always an interesting one on that one.
Nothing to lose.
Exactly. We jump to round 17 as we see the GWS Giants get a nice little win over Gold Coast, 78-51, a 27-point win there. The Swans have another thriller as they fall to the Lions at Brighton Homes Arena by 5, 97-92. The Frankston Dolphins with another nice win over the KC Demons by 27, 68-41. A 1-point thriller as the Zebras edge out the Sharks 60-59. Box Hill get a win on the road at Arden Street with a 14-point win over the North Melbourne Roos 60-46. Werribee continuing its strong form with a 54-point win over the Northern Bullants 103-49. We have a draw in this round as a 57-57 draw at GMHBA Stadium between Geelong and the Footscray Bulldogs. The Williamstown Seagulls get a 22-point win over Richmond 58-36. Carlton, as you said, finding some form as they beat the old rivals Collingwood 133-50, and a 5-point thriller as Coburg get another win on the ledger, beating the Port Melbourne Borough 75-70. I mean, 5 points, draw, 1 point, 5 points. What a round of footy! Some absolute classics that we have. I mean, you can't just pick just one in this round.
So much to talk about. So much to talk about. Let's work from the top. The Lions and the Swans. Sydney kicked 8 goals in the first quarter of this game, and looked like they were going to land another huge road scalp against a Brisbane Lions team that was chasing an 8th victory in a row. The Lions came back, as you know, came back from about 5 goals down. They were at one stage in the game. The first 4 goals of the last quarter made it look like they were home and over the line, but once again a rally from Sydney this time from 14 points behind, 2 behinds, then a goal to Matty Lloyd at the 29-minute mark, left it 1 goal the difference, and right to the death, Angus Sheldrick took a mark, had a set shot from 35 metres out, not far off, directly in front, with 30 seconds to go to draw the game, and kicked a point. So another missed opportunity there for Sydney, unfortunately, and it's those results that will probably mean that the Swans miss out on the finals in the VFL. Frankston and Casey, we'll touch on that one is Frankston's first victory over the Casey Demons since 2014, and their first victory at Frankston over the Demons since 2006, would you believe? So
Crazy.
they've absolutely dominated them for a long time, the Demons. So that was a huge result for the Dolphins to get. The game I commentated was Sandringham and Southport. Southport in total command, absolute total command, 35 points up at the 20-minute mark of the third quarter and did not kick another goal. And Sandringham came over top of them and pinched the lead with a late goal and then a couple of crucial marks inside defensive 50 from Angus McLennan and Matt Allison saved a remarkable victory there for the Zebras. The Sharks, I think, just froze because coming from the terrific weather in Queensland, it was about 6 degrees. Wind blow the goalposts were swaying like this. It was an absolute nightmare to commentate. So I don't know how it would have been to play in. The draw, the conditions were even worse there. Geelong and Footscray. I'm sure anyone who follows the AFL would have seen
Oh, the
the
results. Yeah.
state of GMHBA Stadium at the end of the AFL game later on that night. It absolutely rained cats and dogs during the cats and dogs.
Convenient, right?
And in the end, the Bulldogs held on. The ball was camped no more than 20 metres away from Geelong's goal for about the last 4 minutes, and the Bulldogs managed to avoid conceding a score to hang on for that draw. And Coburg also, like Sandringham, were 35 points behind Port Melbourne. And this one was, I think, at the start of the last quarter. Port Melbourne kicked the first goal of the last quarter, got 35 points in front. At that stage, Coburg had only kicked 5 goals. They kicked 6 from then on to pinch the game at the 29-minute mark through a set shot goal at the end by Ryan Sturgis, who has spent his entire career in the back line, got thrown forward in the second half because he was struggling and kicked 4 goals in the second half to win the game. So it's just an amazing round of football with storylines everywhere, and there's probably a lot more there that we can talk about, but we just don't have the time.
That's absolutely crazy. And in fact, yeah, 35-point deficits and to come back and get wins is absolutely mental. But it just shows you footy is such a momentum game. When you can start getting some momentum, get a goal or two in a row, the whole group gets up and about, and then it just everything seems to switch. It's so fascinating sometimes how the sport can just flip on a dime. It's absolutely
And
insane. So we go to the last round that was played just this last weekend, and some interesting results already. Just scanning through them really quickly is GWS go down to Casey Fields and get a nice little 7-point win, 58-51. As you said, the Swans with an impressive scalp on the road, knocking off the Southport Sharks by 25, 93-68. The Queens, the Q clash of the lighter variety sees the Gold Coast Suns knock off the Lions 131-96. The Cats get a win over the Roos 72-51. Werribee again another strong round with a win by 27 over Port Melbourne 76-49. Collingwood bounce back and get a win over Richmond 64-53. Box Hill with a nice impressive win over Williamstown by 22 at 92-68. The Frankston Dolphins beat the Coburg Lions by 28, 69, 41, and the Dons edge out the Zebras at Windy Hill by 5, 67, 62. So this kind of bookends with some great games with a 7-point win by the Giants and a nice little 5-point win by the Dons over the Zebras.
another wet weather round after the sun basically shone all week. The rain was falling again on the weekend, which made it tough. I'm sure you can guess by those scores where it didn't rain,
Mhm.
which is of course Queensland, where there were 2 terrific games of footy played, and that's what I was talking about with the Jekyll and Hyde Swans. once again a big time away victory. That they could have had a couple more, like with the Brisbane Lions one as well, and they pushed Werribee and Geelong, who are currently the top two sides, but they're probably going to miss the finals because they lost to teams that they shouldn't lose to. Uh, GWS 22 points behind Casey just before three-quarter time. Had only kicked 3 goals at that stage. They kicked the last 6 of the game to run over the top. So there is another comeback victory for you. Gold Coast and the Brisbane Lions. Well, the last time the Lions lost was in round 6 when the Suns beat them by 86 points. So 8 wins in a row for Brisbane. Then they run into the Suns and they get smacked again. 131 to 96 there, as you said. And yeah, the Suns, the reigning premiers, proving that they're still very dangerous. Although the bad news to come out of Gold Coast since that match is the captain James Cheetah has been ruled out for the season with a serious quad injury, and the star fullback Caleb Graham is out for probably 6 weeks with a knee injury. So they are 2 huge losses for the Suns. They've got a friendly draw coming home, which means they should be still well and truly right to play finals. But those 2 losses are really going to hurt them. North Melbourne bowed out of finals contention with that loss to Geelong. They now cannot make it. We're figuring that it will take at least 38 premiership points, probably 40 to make the top 10. They can now only get to 36. So they're finished, unfortunately for them. Port Melbourne actually kicked 4 of the first 5 goals against Werribee there, and had a handy lead before the Tigers machine got rolling, and that's 11 wins in a row now for Werribee, and it puts them 2.5 games clear on top of the VFL ladder as they try to go one better than last year. So they're going to take a power of beating and to get them off top spot. Collingwood broke a 12-match losing streak with that win over Richmond. Amazing stuff that a team like Collingwood could go 3 months without winning a game. But they got the job done there in good style. They had a good lead. Richmond came back, should have ran over top of them, but missed a couple of easy shots. And then if you look up the highlights, you will see Ed Allen from Collingwood unloading a kick from the backside of the centre circle that actually bounced about 20 metres out and kept going and went through for the goal that turned out to be the go-ahead goal that gave Collingwood the win. So amazing stuff there. And Sandringham's finals hopes now hanging by a thread after they failed to beat the lower-ranked Bombers there at Windy Hill in difficult conditions as well.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Absolutely insane. Let's jump right into it, sir. That is the men's 5 rounds done. We go to the women's. We got to talk finals because we have a premier two that has been crowned. Let's go through their path to getting there. We won't say who for those that maybe don't know. We'll jump right into it. The first round of finals sees the first 2 elimination finals as the Borough send the Hawks packing from this season by 18, 49-31. North Melbourne sending the Dons home back to their homes with an impressive 63-point win, 76-13. And in the top of the table clash with one team, with the loser staying in finals and the winner jumping to the preliminary finals, Williamstown knock off the Western Bulldogs 45-27. I mean, you look at the results, 2 relatively close games and an absolute smashing, but to see the Dons and the Hawks being the first 2 teams to go home, kind of a little bit of a shocker.
It was a bit of a surprise. Certainly, the margin of the result between North Melbourne and Essendon. North Melbourne were playing their first ever finals match in I think their 4th or 5th season in the competition, and Essendon were the consummate professionals, the team that had been there, done that for a long time. But to be absolutely destroyed like that was a really ominous sign for the Kangaroos. The Hawks very disappointing in losing to the reigning premiers, who were fantastic, make no question about that. But I know we were saying at previous chats throughout the season, weren't we, that just wait to see how the Hawks go when they don't have all their AFLW players. Remember, they were absolutely on a tear at the start of the season and belting everyone. When those AFLW players got put in cotton and wool, things changed around a little bit. And Williamstown, their first ever finals victory in their second final, beating the Bulldogs there was a really good result. But unfortunately, the key thing to come out of that was the captain Eliza Strafford, who seemed completely fine at the end of the game. She had a post match interview with us on the radio, and then very excitedly went and galloped back to her group and was celebrating the victory, and went in for a scan on a sore knee on the Monday, and was absolutely stunned to find out that her ACL was gone. So that ended her season, and really put a massive dent in Williamstown's hopes of going all the way, even though they were through to the second semi-final.
Yeah, it's just crazy sometimes. Sometimes the adrenaline, but that's absolutely insane and heart wrenching too. You never want to see a player go down with an ACL on that one for sure. So we'll jump to the semifinal rounds where we have the elimination semifinal as the Western Bulldogs send Port Melbourne home with a 12-point win, 34-12. And North Melbourne with a shocker, knocking off top of the table Williamstown to send Williamstown into a preliminary final and North straight into a grand final. An interesting round here. The shocker, the close games, both scores within 3 goals. A good round of footy for the 2 games that we got.
Certainly was, and it was one burst from North Melbourne that was just. I was not there. I was calling a VFL game at the time, but I did do the other one, the Port Melbourne Bulldogs game, which we'll talk about in a minute. But at the 1 minute mark of the second quarter, Williamstown led by 13 points, and we're off to a good start, and they looked pretty good. And then North Melbourne just went whack. They kicked 6 goals in the next 15 minutes of football, which in women's football is completely unheard of. They turned a 13-point deficit into a 24-point lead at halftime. And yeah, to be honest with you, there was no coming back from that. Williamstown tried hard. They kicked the first couple of goals of the third quarter and got back within 11 points, but they were never going to get back and win that game. And North Melbourne, as we said, in their first final series, were through to their first grand final in style.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, Western Bulldogs, just a little bit too classy, a little bit too experienced for Port, and they used the ball better and just ground it out. It was only was 12 points in the end, but it did get out to 20 midway through the last quarter before Port kicked the last 8 points of the game. They were never going to win that. The Bulldogs were just a little bit too strong.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And to see North Melbourne automatically there in a grand final, we need to know who they will play. And in a crazy change of circumstance, a rematch of that qualifying final in the first round, but a complete flip of result as the Western Bulldogs go absolute whack to the Williamstown Seagulls, beating them by 44-60-16. I mean, I thought this was going to be a competitive game, was not expecting this result.
I tipped Williamstown more on faith that they'd been the top team all year, but I had a feeling that the Bulldogs were going better by this stage. And Williamstown having been brushed aside in very un-Williamstown fashion in the second semi-final by North Melbourne. The loss of Eliza Strafford, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, and of course the key defender Gabby Beaton-Webster just before the finals, who was picked up as a supplementary selection by Fremantle the week before the finals, and obviously disappeared off to do her AFLW preseason training. one of those losses being beating Webb Webster, they were able to handle. Once they lost the second one, that was the tipping point, unfortunately for them. And the Bulldogs were just absolutely outstanding. And to be honest with you, could have won by a lot more in that game. Williamstown's only 2 goals came in a 4-minute period in the second quarter, and for the rest of the game, they were just completely outclassed. So it was a sad way for their season to end, but massive congratulations on their best ever season at VFLW level, and I'm sure they'll learn from that and come back even stronger.
Definitely for sure. So we have a grand final. North Melbourne v the Western Bulldogs, and North Melbourne's Cinderella run continues as they get the win, a 20-point win, beating the Bulldogs 68-48. Our premiers, the North Melbourne Kangaroos.
And as I said, as the final siren went, it was time to join in the sweetest chorus of them all. It
Very
was
true.
a it was a culmination of a stunning final series by North Melbourne and a great run of form. They won 8 out of their last 9 games. The only one they lost was by 7 points to the Bulldogs in round 14, the last week before the finals. In this particular game, it looked like it was going to be another absolute thrashing in favour of the Kangaroos. They kicked 4 goals in the first 13 minutes of the game. They led 26-0 by that stage, and it looked like it was how far North Melbourne, but the margin got out to as much as I'll scan through here to confirm exactly what it was. 32 points it was in favour of North Melbourne at the 13-minute mark of the second quarter. And once again, like you just don't come back from that in VFLW in women's footy. It's unheard of to turn over a deficit like that. But that's exactly what the Bulldogs did. They absolutely exploded. They kicked just scanning through here. They kicked 1 goal. They kicked 1 goal two to finish the quarter, so they were still 24 points behind at half time. But then they came out and absolutely dominated the third quarter, 4 goals to none. And we went to the final change with scores absolutely level, locked away, no closer to knowing who was going to win. Bulldogs have all the momentum. North Melbourne just went back to basics and charged away again. They kicked a couple of goals in the first 5 minutes of the last quarter, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back for the Bulldogs. North running away with a wonderful win, and their first ever premiership in their first final series, the first flag of any kind for the football club in 25 years since the AFL premiership in 1999, and a wonderful achievement for them, and congratulations to Brett Gourlay, the coach, Jess Jones, the captain, who announced her retirement at the end of the game, and Nike Dujuk, a massively talented Sudanese Australian footballer. We're seeing a lot of these players coming through in both men's and women's football, and they are electric. They are brilliant to watch. Have got all the skills in the world, and she kicked 4 goals in the grand final and was a clearly deserving winner of the Lisa Hardiman Medal for Best on Ground. She's an absolute star, and the only thing that I can't understand is that she isn't on an AFLW list right now.
Yeah, and that's kind of the crazy thing about it is that there are some players that I literally I look and I go, how is this one not on a list? And it just shows you how competitive it is. But it's very interesting to look at it because you just don't know. Like and it's frustrating because you see some of these super talented, but the good part, the crazy part about it is that it means we have the pleasure of watching these incredible
Oh yeah,
players in the state leagues. It's I know some people think it's a horrible thing, but I think it's good because it improves the quality of the state leagues, and the more the quality of the state leagues improve, the better footy that we get, and makes them even better for if they do get picked up by an AFLW team. So, as frustrating
without
as
a
it
shadow of
is,
a doubt.
as frustrating as it is, it's actually a good thing for women's footy as a whole. Because I know there's a Sample W player who used to play at Collingwood, Jess Bates, who I've said numerous times. I've had a
Exactly.
Sample W coach tell me the same thing. How she's not on an AFLW list is absolutely a travesty. But unfortunately, it's the way things go. So that is it. A
Yeah, we
premier
were
and
lucky enough
oh,
to see. Yeah, sorry, no, we were lucky enough to see Jess Bates here playing for Collingwood last season, and
mhm.
she won the coaches award in the league. She won Collingwood's best and fairest. She was the red hot favourite for the league medal. The Lambert Pierce medal ended up missing out by 2 votes before heading back home to Glenelg. So I know exactly who you're talking about. She is a superstar, and to be honest with you, um, the AFLW's loss is the Sandford W and the VFLW in the case of Dejuk. It's our gain that we do get to see these players week in, week out, as you said.
Yep. And crazy part is that it was a repeat for Jess this year. She won the her the Glenelg Best and Fairest and finished 3 votes short of the Sanford W Best and Fairest medal. So she is an absolute gun.
Yeah,
She did fall. She did have an injury late in the year, so I think she missed the last 2 games. So I think if she plays in either of those, she probably wins
she
another
wins it.
Best
Yeah.
and Fairest, which would be her second in her career. So can't doubt that Jess is an absolute gun. So in fact, I speaking of that, I actually just had an interview with her last week. It's on the channel that if you get a chance, give it a listen. It is a fantastic chat. She's an absolutely wonderful young lady, incredibly fun to chat with her and to find out her experience and how she kind of goes through and why she went back to Glenelg and how much she enjoys her footy nowadays in the Sandful W. So just a minor plug there for that fun chat that I had with Jess. She's an absolute gun. Love her to death. She was absolutely amazing. So we jump to the burning questions. It'll be a little bit of a shorter burning questions. We'll start off since we just finished with the women's competition. We will talk with the burning questions is North of this year's premiers. I mean, we can't deny that now, but how shocking was their victory? Or was this something that didn't surprise you with how good their form was going into the finals?
To be honest with you, and as I said in the last chat we had, they were my preseason selection to win the premiership. So it's not very often that your tip does come off 18 weeks later. But I just thought they were primed to strike. They did finish ninth last year. But they did win 7 games to finish ninth. They'd recruited well. Um, we were coming off the back of an AFLW grand final performance by the club, and yeah, I just thought they were primed to strike, and yeah, so it's a certainly not a surprise for me because I was on them all season. The way they did it in the finals was probably the bit that made people sit up and take notice more than anything. Um, and and don't tell anyone that I tipped the Bulldogs to come last.
I don't think anybody will hear about that one. Just kidding.
And that was no disrespect to them. It was just how even I thought the competition was going to be, and that they recruited very well and they took that next step. And yeah, so they were the big surprise packet of the year for me, to make it through to the grand final just 2 years after being completely uncompetitive. So that was the huge performance for them. And who will be the next team to do that? Potentially Darabin if they can add a few more. I thought they'd be a bouncer this year. It took them half a year to bounce, but when they did, they made a really good run late in the season too.
Yep, it'll definitely be interesting for sure. We'll jump back to the men's. I have 2 questions here. The first one is not surprising. We got to talk about Werribee. As you said, an incredible win streak. Werribee has only strengthened its hold on the top spot in the VFL with only 3 games left, and I think, as I heard you correctly, a 2.5 game lead. So pretty much this question is kind of easy. Is this the Tigers' minor premiership to win?
Yeah, they'll be finishing on top. There's no question about that. Just having a quick look at the games that they've got left. They've got 2 games left. Neither of them are easy, mind you, against Southport at Avalon Airport Oval at Werribee this weekend, and then a bye and an away game against the Box Hill Hawks in round 21. Uh, but they could drop both of those, and we look at Footscray, who's second on the ladder, 10 points behind. They've just had their last bye, so they would need to win all three games and have Werribee lose both to take top spot off them. And that is possible on Footscray's part. They play Casey, Frankston, and a Sydney team that will possibly be eliminated by then. So there's every chance that the Bulldogs do get enough points, but I think Werribee probably locks it away officially this weekend, unless Southport can come down and rediscover the form that they've lost over the past 5 quarters of footy.
Will definitely be interesting. And then, and with my last one, there's only 3 rounds left and still many spots still up for grabs. Are there any teams outside the finals you could see fighting their way into the finals by the last round of the season?
There's only three that can mathematically make it. You rule out North Melbourne in 14th spot. They're 2 games and percentage outside with 2 games to play. So they're not going to make it, even if they would need 2 big wins, and they would need Richmond or Frankston to have 2 big losses, or Gold Coast to have 2 big losses, and to have other results go their way. So forget about North Melbourne. Sydney and Sandringham are now 6 points out, a game and a half out with 2 to play. So highly unlikely that they can make it. The Swans have the bye this weekend, actually, and my app's just stopped on me. The Swans and Sandringham both have the bye this weekend. So that is crucial when you look at the teams that are 8th, 9th, and 10th, 6 points ahead. The Gold Coast Suns play Coburg in Queensland, so they will win that, you would expect. Richmond has a bye, has their last bye as well. Frankston plays, where are they? The Dolphins. Frankston played Port Melbourne down at Frankston. And a big congratulations in that game, too, I must say, to Anthony Anastasio from Port Melbourne, who will play his 150th VFL game this Friday night. So not many players get to that milestone at this level. So congratulations to him. But I expect they're not going to be mathematically gone, Sandringham and Sydney, this week, because Richmond have the bye, but it will mean there's only one spot still available for them after this week. GWS is sitting a game outside the top 10. They have already had all their byes, so they've got 3 games left, and 2 wins there could be enough to get them in. So they play Box Hill this weekend, the Giants. Then they play the Brisbane Lions away and Williamstown away. So having to win 2 of those is a tough ask. So I know I've made a short answer long, but the way I see it is that the top 10 is probably set right now.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of thought too. Looking at the results, I thought it's going to be difficult. There's a shot with 3 games left, but it will not be easy. So we'll have some fun. We have round 19 coming up this week. Let's do some cheeky little tips. Let's see how you think this round will go. An interesting round here. We start off with an interesting one at Whitten Oval as the Footscray Bulldogs host the Casey Demons again. Dougie's trying to solidify, Casey trying to play spoiler. Doggies, Casey, who do you like?
Doggies easily. I think the Demons, they try hard. They try hard, but I think away from home, I would be absolutely stunned if Casey was able to get anywhere near Footscray this Friday afternoon in that game.
Alrighty, we jump to it. An interesting one. Looks like under the lights as Frankston host Port Melbourne Burrows at Kinetic Stadium, a gorgeous stadium under the lights. Dolphins, Burrows, who do you like in this one?
Huge crowd getting behind the Dolphins, their last night match for the year. Um, they play Footscray in the following round and then have a bye in round 21. So if they want to make the finals for the first time since 2008, they simply win this game. Port Melbourne will be up and about to try and get over the line for Anastasio, as I just mentioned, and I certainly think that there's some sort of chance. But Frankston's won 4 games in a row. They're in good form, and they've just got far too much at stake to drop this one.
I'd be with you if I was tipping in this one, but I'm not even going to make the attempt. I'm going to ask this one, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer. People's first stadium is Gold Coast, host the Coburg Lions. As much as I would love to see a Lions upset here, Suns, I think, will win this one.
Yeah, they're much improved. The Lions, they're competitive most weeks, but yeah, unfortunately, they're not beating the Suns up in Queensland. That would be a bigger upset than Casey over Footscray.
For sure. So we jump to Icon Park. Can Carlton pull off the upset? Can they knock off the Brisbane Lions?
I don't think they can, but as I said earlier on, they are in good form, and they have had big wins over Brisbane Lions at Icon Park before. So stranger things have happened in football. This one would not surprise me as much, but Brisbane Lions coming off a defeat, needing to lock in their spot in the top 4, surely they get the job done against Carlton.
One that I may pull up on my iPad and watch live because this is going to be a cracker at Avalon Airport Oval as the #1 Werribee Tigers look to wrap up the minor premiership as they host a Sharks team coming in with a shot to shock the world. Can the Sharks do it, or will Werribee be able to say they are minor premiers by the end of the round?
Well, they can do it, Southport. They definitely can. Their best football is good enough. Um, they were my they were my pick at the start of the season. Werribee has taken all before them and will start red hot favourites in this game. But I tilt back to a game in, I think it was 2022, the first time the Sharks went to Avalon Airport Oval, and they beat Werribee by 80 odd points. Uh, it wasn't the same Werribee team, the same juggernaut that Werribee are right now, and Southport was going all right. It would have been 2021 actually when the Sharks were on their way to the grand final. 2022 they made the grand final. Yeah, there's me second guessing myself. Yeah, so that they definitely can. Werribee's got a couple of injuries, and they got a couple more on the weekend, which could worry them a little bit. But I think they're clear favourites, Werribee, and they'll wrap up top spot this weekend. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if Southport pulled an upset here.
It'd be an interesting one for sure. That like I said, 9:05 my time on a Friday night. I may watch that one. I'm not sure. It'll all just depend. I think the Swans play at 4:30 the next morning, so maybe not, but we'll have to see. But that one's got my attention a lot with no Swans VFL game this year. That got my attention. I may sit down and pull up some popcorn and give that one a watch. So all right, the next one at Gina Steel Oval is in Preston as the Bullies host the Dons. As much as I want the Bullies to win this one, Dons should win this, but you never know. Bottom of the table clash.
They seem to be in reasonable form. They seem to be finishing all right, Essendon, but they had a good win over Sandringham last week. Bull Ants coming off a bye to reset. They remain competitive. They pushed Werribee to what was it, about 5 or 6 goals? It might have been 50 points in the end, where Werribee kicked 4 goals late, but they were very competitive in that game. If they can produce that sort of football for 4 quarters, there is absolutely no reason why they can't beat Essendon. Um, I don't think I'd be able to tip them at this stage, but there is no reason why they can't win with their best football.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. That'll be a fun one. All right. And interesting up in Sydney and Blacktown International Sports Park as the Giants host Box Hill. An interesting one here. Who do you like in this one?
Tough. This is the toughest one. to pick, I reckon, of the round,
I was thinking the same
quite
thing as I was
clearly.
looking at them.
If it was at Box Hill, if it was at Box Hill, you'd clearly be picking the Hawks. But
Mhm.
the Giants are very, very dangerous up in Sydney. They have lost a couple of games there that you wouldn't have expected them to lose, such as to Carlton when they'd lost 8 games in a row. If they want any chance to make the finals, they have to win GWS. Box Hill, they had a great win over Williamstown last week to stay in the top six. They'll know by Sunday probably what the situation is. If Southport go down to Werribee on Saturday, then it won't mean quite as much to Box Hill because it'll mean they're almost safe in the top six and avoiding the wild card rounds, given the games that they've got to finish with. I think the Giants can win this. I really think the Giants can win this and keep their season alive for an extra week.
You really talked yourself into that one.
I did. I think I did.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And then last round, last game of the round at DSV Stadium in Victoria is Williamstown host North Melbourne. An interesting one here. Can the Seagulls can keep their finals hopes intact, make sure that they don't fall out with them sitting in seventh spot right now in a safe spot, but still close to that drop down zone?
Yeah, they'll win. They'll win. Simple as that. North Melbourne dropped out of contention last week. Williamstown hardly ever loses at DSV Stadium. I know they have had a couple of surprise losses there this year, but they are a completely different beast there on their home ground, and with North Melbourne now looking towards next year, I can't see that they can beat Williamstown, and that would potentially get the Seagulls back into the top six where they probably feel they belong.
Definitely, for sure. Well, that is it. That is all of the games for round 19 of the men's. The women's are complete. The VFL show, we finally were able to get to it. Like I said, a few things personally that had kind of delayed recording. We try to do it as early as possible, but as per usual, Brendan, fantastic work by you. Your coverage of this has been so much fun. I love chatting with you. Thank you so much for hopping on the podcast and telling us a lot about this wonderful competition that is the VFL and VFLW.
Mate, it's always the highlight of my month, and thanks very much for having me with you again, and good luck, of course, to Team USA and the other countries in the Transatlantic Cup that gets underway this weekend over there. And we certainly wish you were coming to Australia, and we hope that you're back here soon for a full international cup very soon.
Well, I hope so too. I have two guys playing in that Transatlantic Cup up in Toronto. They get started this weekend. They play France on Saturday morning our time, Sunday early morning for you guys over there. So for anybody that's listening to it, I will try to keep track of that and tell you how the guys are doing. The women are also playing as well, both in Toronto. It's going to be a fun few weeks because my guys are a little thin with a couple of my best guys being up in Toronto and another one of my guys on the reserves roster. So there as well. So I have three guys in Toronto as we speak. It's so much. I'm so glad for the club. We'll miss them being at trainings, but we're so happy that they're able to don that Revolutions jersey. So it's fantastic. So that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Keep track, more coverage, AFL and Waffle podcast still to come later this week. Everything's been kind of nuts. This is going to be a 4 podcast week with my chat with Kiana Lee of Norwood earlier today. This will come out, then AFL and Waffle before the end of the week. It's going to be a crazy week for podcasts, but you want to know what? I love footy. I'm crazy, so we got to do it. So, thank you so much for listening. If you like what you listen to, please like, subscribe, and we will be back again in your ears very soon with more footy coverage.